Most of the suffering in your life did not come from what happened, but from what your mind replayed when everything was already quiet. There is something many of us discover later in life. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, in moments of honesty. We realize that the mind has been telling stories for many years. Stories about what might go wrong. Stories about what should have been different. Stories about who we think we are because of the past. And the strange thing is this: most of those stories felt real. They shaped our sleep, our health, our relationships. But when we look back carefully, many of them never became reality. In this reflection, I want to invite you to slow down with me. Not to stop thinking, not to fix yourself, but to notice something gentle and powerful. You are not the thoughts that pass through you. You are the one who has been watching all along. Welcome to Son.Mindfulness. This is a quiet space for reflection, clarity, and lived wisdom. If these words speak to something you recognize in your own life, I invite you to stay with me. Let us walk through this reflection together, slowly and honestly. Part 1. You believed a movie that was never real. Let me begin gently, with a night you may recognize. It's late. The house is quiet in that particular way it gets when everyone else has already gone to bed. The lights are off except for a small lamp in the corner, or maybe the blue glow of a phone screen that you promised yourself you wouldn't pick up again. You're lying there, eyes open, and it's not the room that feels heavy. It's your mind. Have you ever had a night like that, where nothing is actually happening, but inside you everything is happening? The ceiling is the same, the pillow is the same, the air is the same, but your chest feels tighter than it should. Your throat feels dry, your stomach feels like it's holding a small stone. You check the clock, 11:47. You close your eyes and then the movie starts. Not a movie on Netflix, not something you chose, a movie your mind produces, with a budget that never runs out. In the movie, a simple email becomes a disaster. A short message becomes a rejection. A delayed response becomes a sign that something is wrong. Your mind begins to connect dots that were never meant to be connected. You remember a conversation from earlier in the day, a tone, a pause, a look, and suddenly your mind says, "See, that's it. That's the proof." Proof of what? Proof that you're about to lose something. Proof that you've said the wrong thing. Proof that you're not safe. And here's the strange part. The part most of us don't notice until later. Your body believes it. Your heart rate rises as if you're running. Your muscles tighten as if you're about to fight. Your breathing becomes shallow as if danger is in the room. But the room is still quiet, only the movie is loud. A friend of mine once told me something that stayed with me for years. He said, "I didn't have insomnia. I had imagination." He wasn't joking. He was describing a truth. Because many nights, what keeps us awake is not pain, but prediction. Not reality, but rehearsal. We lie in bed and rehearse loss. We rehearse being misunderstood. We rehearse being alone. We rehearse the worst version of tomorrow again and again until it feels like tomorrow has already happened. And when the mind does this long enough, it doesn't feel like thinking. It feels like seeing. It feels like you're simply being realistic. But are you? Let me ask you something, very personally. How many things have you feared that never arrived? How many nights did you spend suffering in advance, only to wake up and find the day was ordinary? Maybe not perfect, but ordinary, manageable, sometimes even surprisingly kind. And yet the suffering from the night before was real, wasn't it? Your tired eyes were real. Your tension was real. Your exhaustion was real. This is why the Buddha spoke so often about the mind. Not because the world isn't difficult, but because the mind can quietly double our burden. In Buddhist teaching, there is a simple but powerful insight. Suffering is not only what happens to us. Suffering is also what we add. We take a moment and stretch it into a story. We take a feeling and build a future around it. A small uncertainty becomes a life sentence. In modern psychology, they call this rumination, chewing the same thought again and again, like a cow chewing cud. In Buddhist language, there's a deeper word, papanka, mental proliferation. It means the mind doesn't just think, it multiplies. One thought becomes 5, 5 become 50, 50 become an entire world. And you begin living in that world as if it were true. And I want to be honest with you, I still do this sometimes. Even after years of practice, even after studying the teachings, there are nights when I catch myself building a courtroom in my head, putting myself on trial and writing a verdict before any evidence has even appeared. So I'm not speaking to you from a high seat. I'm speaking as someone who has sat in the dark with a quiet room and a very loud mind. Now here is the gentle turning point. The mind's movie feels convincing because your brain was designed to protect you. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a lion in the grass and an unpaid bill you haven't opened yet. It simply senses threat and prepares you. That's not weakness. That's biology. But what was once helpful in the wild can become harmful in modern life. Because today, the lion isn't outside. It's a thought, and thoughts can appear anywhere, at any hour, with no warning. So what do? We don't fight the mind like an enemy. We don't shame ourselves for being human. We learn to recognize what is happening. We learn to pause and say, quietly, this is a movie. Not in a dismissive way, in a compassionate way. This is a story being projected. And here's a question I want you to sit with, just for a moment, maybe even let it land in your body. When you are anxious at night, what is actually happening in the room? And what is only happening on the screen of the mind? Because the moment you can separate those two, something begins to soften. You may not control the first thought, but you can choose whether you keep watching the film. And I'll leave you with this line to carry into your day, and maybe into your next restless night. It's not the problem that exhausts you. It's the movie your mind plays all night. Part 2. The enemy is not thinking, but attachment. Now, let's go a little deeper together. After a night like the one we just talked about, many people wake up and say to themselves, I think too much. That's my problem. Maybe you've said that too. I can't stop thinking. My mind never shuts off. I wish I could just think less. I understand that feeling very well. For a long time, I believed the same thing. But with time, practice, and many honest conversations with people just like you, I've come to see something important. The problem is not that you think. The problem is that you stick. Thinking by itself is not the enemy. Thoughts are like signals. They arise, they pass, they try to tell us something. In fact, if you had no thoughts at all, you wouldn't be calm. You would be unconscious. The suffering begins at a very specific moment. It begins when you forget that you are watching the movie, and you start believing that you are the character. Let me explain this in a simple, human way. Imagine you're sitting in a movie theater. The screen is large, the sound is clear, the story is emotional. For a while you forget you're in a chair. Your body reacts, your heart races, you might even cry. But if someone gently touches your shoulder and says, it's just a movie, something changes. The story doesn't disappear, but your grip loosens. Life with the mind works the same way. A thought appears. What if something goes wrong? At first, it's just a signal, a flicker on the screen. Then comes the next step, a feeling. Your chest tightens, your stomach reacts. In Buddhist language, this is Vedana, feeling tone. Then comes perception. Your mind says this feeling means danger. That is sanya, labeling, interpreting. Then comes mental activity. You build a story, you connect memories, you imagine outcomes. That is sankhara, mental formations. None of this is a mistake. This is how the human mind works. But here's where suffering quietly enters. At some point you stop saying, a thought is happening, and you start saying, this is happening to me. The thought becomes my thought, the story becomes my story, the fear becomes my future, and suddenly you're no longer watching the movie. You are inside it. Modern psychology says something very similar, in a different language. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there is a simple but powerful idea. Thoughts are not facts. A thought can feel urgent, convincing, even logical, and still be untrue. Yet when we are emotionally involved, the mind doesn't say, this is a possibility. It says, this is reality. Have you ever noticed how differently you relate to thoughts when you're calm? A worry arises and you say, oh, that's just my mind. But when you're tired or lonely or afraid, the same thought feels absolute. It feels personal. It feels like you. This is what Buddhism calls upadana, clinging. Not clinging to objects, but clinging to identity. Clinging to the idea, this thought defines me. I once spoke with a woman in her 60s who said something very honest. She said, I don't know who I am without my worries. That sentence stayed with me. Because for many of us, especially after decades of responsibility, the mind stories feel like home. We've rehearsed them for years. So when a thought appears, we don't just notice it. We move into it, we furnish it, we defend it, we suffer inside it. And again, I want to say this clearly and gently. This is not a failure. This is conditioning. Your mind learned to do this to protect you, to prepare, to prevent pain. But protection can quietly turn into imprisonment. The Buddha never taught us to destroy thoughts. He taught us to see them clearly. To notice, this is a sensation, this is a perception, this is a mental pattern. And most importantly, this is not who I am. You are not the character on the screen, you are the awareness that knows the screen. That may sound abstract, so let me bring it back to something very simple. The next time a thought arises, especially a painful one, try this, just once. Instead of arguing with it, instead of believing it, say softly, a thought is here. Not my thought, just a thought. And notice what happens. There may still be emotion. There may still be discomfort, but something important loosens. You step back into the seat. You remember you are watching. And I'll leave you with this reflection to carry with you today. What if the suffering is not caused by the thought itself, but by the moment you forgot you were not the thought? I leave that question with you. Part 3. The backpack isn't heavy because of stones, but because you never put it down. Let me offer you an image. Not a complicated teaching, just an image you can feel in your body. Imagine you're wearing a backpack. At first, it's light, almost unnoticeable. You can walk with it, work with it, smile with it. You do what you have to do. But as the years pass, you keep adding things. Not because you want to, because life happens. A disappointment goes in. A regret goes in. A sentence someone said to you, maybe 20 years ago, goes in. A moment you wish you could redo. A conversation you never got closure from. A loss you didn't have time to grieve properly, and slowly, without noticing, your shoulders change. You begin to walk as if you're carrying something that no one else can see. Have you ever felt that? Like you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix? Like you're not only tired from the day, but tired from the years? Now, in the original video you shared, the backpack is filled with stones, little burdens we add through overthinking. That's a helpful metaphor. But I want to take it one level deeper, because for many people, especially those over 50, the backpack isn't heavy, mainly because of today's thoughts. It's heavy because of yesterday's stories. Not stones. Stories. And the strange thing about stories is this: They don't weigh anything in the mind until you believe them. Until you keep replaying them. Until you keep carrying them year after year, as if they are still happening. So let me ask you something gently. What story are you still carrying, even though the event ended long ago? Pause for a moment. Let your mind search honestly, not with judgment, with kindness. Maybe it's a story about failure. Maybe it's a story about being abandoned. Maybe it's a story about not being enough. Or maybe it's a story that begins with one simple line: I should have. I should have spoken up. I should have left sooner. I should have seen it coming. I should have been stronger. And then the mind, being the mind, adds the next line: and because I didn't, this is who I am. This is where the weight comes from. Not the memory itself. Memories come and go. The weight comes from the identity we build around the memory. In Buddhist teaching, we can understand this with something very simple. The mind takes experience and turns it into me. There is feeling, a pleasant feeling, an unpleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling. There is perception. The mind labels what happened, gives it a name. Then there is mental formation. The mind creates a pattern around it. And if we're not careful, that pattern becomes a personal story. Not that happened, but that happened to me, and it means something about me. Let me make this practical. A man once told me he still felt embarrassed about something he said at a family gathering. 15 years ago. 15 years. I asked him, "Do you remember what your brother said at the same gathering?" He paused and laughed a little. "No," he said, "not at all." And I said gently, "Then why do you think everyone else remembers your moment the way you do?" His face softened, not because he got a clever answer, but because he saw the truth. The mind carries what other people have already released, and sometimes we carry it because we think carrying it is being responsible. But carrying is not the same as learning. Guilt is not the same as wisdom. Punishing yourself is not the same as growing. Now, I want you to reflect again, very quietly. What are you calling my personality? That might actually be my backpack. Maybe you say, "I'm just an anxious person." But what if you've simply been carrying too much for too long? Maybe you say, "I'm just bitter." But what if you're carrying unspoken grief? Maybe you say, "I'm just guarded." But what if you're carrying a memory that taught you it was unsafe to open? This is not about blaming your past. It's about understanding what you're still holding. In modern psychology, we often talk about rumination as repeating thoughts. But for older adults, rumination often looks like repeating a life interpretation. You keep turning the same moment over in your mind, like an old photograph, trying to find a different meaning. And here's the painful truth. You cannot change what happened, but you can change what you carry forward. So let's do a small pause and reflect together right now. If you're listening, I want you to imagine you're setting the backpack down. Just for 10 seconds. You don't throw it away. You don't deny it existed. You simply place it on the floor, and you notice your shoulders, your jaw, your breath. What do you feel when you imagine not carrying it? Does your body soften even a little? And now ask yourself this: if I didn't carry this story anymore, who would I be? That question can feel scary, because sometimes the story has been with us for so long, it feels like part of our identity. But here is what I've learned, and I'll say it with humility. We don't heal by force. We heal by honesty. We heal by gently seeing what we are holding and asking whether it still needs to be held. And I'll leave you with this thought to carry into your day. What if your life feels heavy, not because you are weak, but because you have been strong for too long without putting anything down? I leave that question with you today. Part 4. 5 ways to calm the mind without fighting it. Up to this point, you may be thinking, all right, I understand the problem. But what do I do when the mind won't rest? That's a very human question, and here's the first thing I want to say very clearly and gently. You do not calm the mind by wrestling with it. If you've ever tried to argue with a worried thought at 2 o'clock in the morning, you already know this. The harder you push, the louder it becomes. So instead of giving you 5 steps or 5 rules or 5 techniques you must master, I want to offer you something different. Think of these not as instructions, but as 5 doors. You don't have to open all of them. You don't have to open them in order. You only need to notice which door feels available to you in this moment. The Buddha understood this deeply. That's why he never taught one single method for everyone. Different minds, different doors. Let's walk slowly. The first door is replacement, but not in a forceful way. Imagine you're sitting at the kitchen table, and your mind keeps replaying a difficult conversation. The same sentence, over and over. You can feel the tension building. Instead of saying, "Stop thinking," you gently bring to mind something wholesome and steady. Maybe the face of someone who has been kind to you. Maybe a place where you once felt safe. In Buddhist language, this is like replacing an unskillful thought with a skillful one. Not suppressing, redirecting. Just for 1 minute, you let your attention rest there. Not perfectly, just sincerely. Often, that's enough to soften the edge. The second door is seeing consequences, but without fear. I once spoke with a man who said his mind constantly imagined worst-case scenarios about his children. He thought worrying was love. So I asked him, "After an hour of worrying, do you feel closer to them or more exhausted?" He paused. This door is about gently noticing where a thought leads. The Buddha said that some thoughts lead to peace and some lead to suffering. Wisdom is learning the difference. So when a thought arises, you can ask quietly, "If I keep following this, where will it take me?" You don't judge the thought, you simply notice its direction. Sometimes the mind lets go on its own, once it sees the cost. The third door is letting be. This one surprises many people. Instead of engaging the thought, you let it pass like background noise. Have you ever been in a cafe hearing conversations around you without following any of them? You hear the sound, but you don't enter the story. You can do the same with thoughts. A worry arises, you notice it, and you let it be without feeding it. In Buddhist teaching, this is non-identification. Not my thought, just a thought. Try this for 90 seconds, that's all. Often the mind quiets not because you fixed it, but because you stopped chasing it. The fourth door is looking at the root. Sometimes a thought keeps returning because it's pointing to an unmet need. A woman once told me she couldn't stop worrying about her health. As we spoke, it became clear she wasn't afraid of illness. She was afraid of being alone. The thought wasn't the enemy. It was a messenger. The Buddha taught that suffering has causes. Not to analyze endlessly, but to understand gently. So when a thought persists, you might ask, what feeling is underneath this? Fear? Sadness? Loneliness? You don't need an answer right away. Just asking with kindness already changes the relationship. The fifth door is steady intention. This is not brute force. It's a quiet decision. There are moments when you say to yourself, "I'm not going to follow this path tonight." Not because you're angry with the mind, but because you care for yourself. In Buddhist practice, this is right effort, not straining, not collapsing, just choosing again and again where you place your attention. Maybe you return to the breath, maybe to the feeling of your feet on the floor, maybe to the simple fact that you are here and safe enough right now. And I want to be honest with you. Some days, none of these doors feel wide open. That's okay. You don't fail the practice. The practice meets you where you are. Even noticing that the mind is agitated is already awareness. And awareness, in itself, has a calming quality. So I invite you to reflect on this very gently. When the mind becomes restless, which door feels closest to you today? Not the one you should use, the one you can use. And I'll leave you with this thought to carry with you. What if peace doesn't come from controlling the mind, but from learning how to stop fighting it? I leave that with you. Part 5. Freedom is not the absence of thought, but the end of being pulled. Before we close this journey together, I want to be very honest with you. I cannot promise you a life without worry. I cannot promise you a mind that never drifts. I cannot promise that fear will never visit again. If anyone promises you that, they are not being truthful. Even the Buddha did not teach the end of thought. He taught the end of being dragged by thought. And that difference changes everything. For many years, I believed freedom meant silence inside the head. No noise, no doubt, no stories. But the more I listened to real people, especially those in the later chapters of life, the more I understood something deeper. Freedom is not a quiet mind. Freedom is a steady place inside you where noise can pass through without carrying you away. Let me put it another way. Imagine standing beside a river. The water keeps moving. Leaves float by, branches drift past, sometimes the current is fast, sometimes slow. You don't try to stop the river. You don't jump in to fix every leaf. You stand on the bank. Thoughts are like that river. They will continue. They always have. Suffering begins when we forget we are on the bank and believe we are in the water. Many people come to me and say, "I still have anxious thoughts. Am I failing?" And I tell them gently, do the thoughts carry you, or do they simply pass? Because that is the real question. In Buddhist teaching, this is called upekkha, equanimity, not indifference, not coldness, balance, the ability to remain present, even when the mind is active. Modern psychology agrees more than you might expect. We now know that the goal is not to eliminate mental activity, but to change our relationship with it. Thoughts come, feelings arise, sensations move, and awareness remains. I want to share something personal with you. There are days, even now, when I notice worry knocking at the door. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It slips in quietly, a concern about the future, a memory from the past, a question with no immediate answer. And instead of pushing it away, I say inside, I see you. Not go away. Just, I see you. And then I return to where I am, to the weight of the body in the chair, to the rhythm of the breath, to the simple fact that in this moment I am here. That is the place I want to offer you. Not a perfect state, a reliable one, a place inside you that does not argue with life but does not drown in it either. Now let me give you an image to carry with you. Imagine a glass of water. When the water is shaken, it becomes cloudy. Particles swirl. You can't see through it. If you try to force the water to clear, it won't work. If you shake it harder, it only gets worse. But if you simply place the glass down and wait, something beautiful happens. The water settles. The particles sink. Clarity returns on its own. The mind works the same way. You don't clear it by force. You clear it by stillness. Not external stillness, but inner non-interference. And here is the quiet truth many people miss. Stillness does not mean nothing happens. It means nothing has to be chased. You may still think, you may still feel, you may still have moments of fear, but they move through you instead of defining you. So as we come to the end of this reflection, I invite you to pause with me. Just pause, feel your breath. Notice the space around your thoughts. You don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need to understand everything. You only need to remember where to stand. And I'll leave you with this final reflection to carry gently into your life. What if freedom is not a life without waves, but learning where to stand when the water moves? Thank you for being here. Conclusion. As we come to the end, notice this moment. Nothing needs to be solved right now. You are here, breathing, and that is already enough. Throughout this reflection, we did not try to silence the mind. We only learned to stop being pulled by it. Thoughts will still come. Memories will still visit. Life will continue to move just as it always has. But perhaps now you can meet it from a quieter place. A place where you are not fighting your thoughts and not believing every story they tell. A place of gentle awareness where things are allowed to come and allowed to go. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your presence here truly matters. If these reflections feel supportive to you, I invite you to subscribe and continue this journey with Son.Mindfulness at your own pace. May you be well, may your days be calm, and may your heart know peace.